Hello, everyone. Franz and I are welcoming you back here to our next session for Martech for 2025. And we are absolutely delighted to have Sara Faatz from Progress with us. Hi, Sara.
Hello.
So let's dive right in, right? First, can you tell us a little bit about Progress and your role there?
Yeah, absolutely. Progress is a software company that's been around for a little more than 40 years, if you can believe that. Our software enables customers to develop, deploy, manage responsible AI-powered applications and experiences. And I actually sit in we have three distinct business units. I sit in the digital experience business unit, where we have a number of products that enable you to build modern digital experiences. So we have Sitefinity, which is our advanced CMS and digital experience platform. We have developer tools, Telerik and Kendo UI, that are user interface controls and components. So when you think of any application that you use, whether it's your phone, web, desktop, when you see a grid, a chart, a graph, a calendar, a drop-down menu, we create that little component that a developer can bind their data to the back end and then easily present that on the front end. And then we have things like Corticon, which is an automated business rules engine, Move It, which is a managed file transfer solution. And we recently acquired ShareFile, a SaaS native AI-powered document-centric collaboration tool. So
great.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I know, 40 years of software. One of the things that brought us together for this interview was a shared appreciation of composability. And I put that in air quotes because it's become quite the rallying cry or buzzword in Martech lately. But there's quite a long history of composability in software more broadly. In plain English, how would you describe composability?
Well, I mean, did you guys play with Legos or bristle blocks as a kid? I mean, congratulations, you were a pioneer in composability. I think that's probably the explanation that's used the most, but in all seriousness, that's what it is. Composability allows you to compose or build a stack, an application, a platform, or an experience using a variety of different components. Those components could be application elements in containers. They could be complete platforms, and those platforms themselves could be composable, or it could be just another application altogether, and those are connected in various ways, right? You can mix, you can match, you can combine different elements to ensure your stack or experience is customized to your needs. You guys had in the report last year a beautiful chart that resonated really well with me, which showed the different degrees of composability, right? It highlights the composed stack, your composable platforms and products, and then your composed creations. And I think that that's really, composability isn't one thing, right? It is a way of doing things.
All right. So in the context of marketing and Martech, where's composability useful? So we hear, labels and buzzwords like composable CDPs, DXPs. What makes them composable?
Well, so what makes them composable, if you think about a composable CDP, it allows you to collect data from multiple sources, house them in data warehouses, leverage your existing data infrastructure, doesn't require data duplication, and you can use that in different elements of your application or your stack. A composable DXP leverages APIs and data connections to allow you to build a modular application. If you think about a digital experience as a whole, by definition, it should be at least multi-channel, but ideally omni-channel, and that's probably a whole other conversation for another time. But what you're trying to do is connect your digital experience in all the digital touch points that your audience might reach out to them. And so you're going to have, you want to have that same streamlined experience across your desktop, your mobile, your wearables, your point of sales, right? All those digital touch points. So I think that's what makes those composable. If you think about where composability is useful, I would zoom out and even just talk about the stack itself, right? Mm-hmm. In order for it to be effective, it needs to be connected, right? And composable Martech stacks are greater than the sum of their parts, meaning your marketing automation platform, your CRM platform, your CDP, your DXP, your data analytics tools are platforms. Those platforms are far more powerful when they're connected. And when they're composed into a complete stack than they are on their own. With that composable infrastructure, you can upgrade, you can update, you can completely replace certain components without ever having to build from scratch. So you can choose the software components that are best for you, selecting best of need as opposed to best of breed. And that ensures that you're building a system that accomplishes your specific goals.
Oh, I love the best of needs. So you also touched upon omni-channel, multi-channel. Would you say that a Martech stack is a kind of a composable marketing infrastructure?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that certainly in my geeky brain, it feels that way. I mean, I think if we can agree that infrastructure at the base level is about people, process, and technology, right? You have your people in the subject matter experts who are managing the process, which is a lot of times your process is established through the technology stack that you've built. And then you have your products, which is your technology that, they stores, produces, publishes, analyzes, measures your data and your assets. I mean, I would say it's absolutely a kind of composable marketing infrastructure, but I might even take it a little bit further and say that your marketing stack, your composable stack, is the heart of your composable marketing infrastructure.
Oh, wow. And composability has been a concept in software development for, I think, from the beginning. And the question is, in what ways do software engineers compose programs, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, in application development, we think of composability as an architecture approach, right? So we use modular and reusable components. This allows us to go live with applications quickly. It allows us to upgrade or update portions of the application easily. And it means we can theoretically change a component or an element of the application without disrupting the entire application. We use things like software development kits or libraries or components, like I had mentioned in the beginning with the Telerik and Kendo UI components. We have those user interface controls that can be used in an application. And all of that is put together, your libraries, your SDKs, your components, into a single code base, right? So think of them as ingredients and you're building out this larger application.
Oh, wow. And are the lessons from composability and software development that, are applicable to the work of marketers or marketing operation people? Is it principles, design patterns?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there are quite a few, but the first one, the design pattern that really comes to mind for me is domain-driven design. I don't know if you're familiar with this concept, but basically the basic principle is that no matter how cool the technology stack is that you have to build the application, if your application doesn't address the problem or the domain of the end user, it's going to fail, right? Full stop, right? So it's critically important to have an understanding of the problem space the application is being built to address, and that's your domain expertise. And then that domain expertise drives the architecture of the application, as opposed to letting the technology itself be the sole driver of how it's created. And for marketing people, that should really resonate, right? If you think about the mantra, know thy customer, know thy audience, right? If you come to your Martech stack creation with that same mantra in mind, and if you think from a design, a domain-driven design mindset, you're going to build a stack that's going to work for, that's, again, goes back to the idea of best of need versus best of breed. You are going to build what is needed. And if you build and architect a composable stack that solves a specific problem, as opposed to just going with something that sounds really cool, you're going to be successful. I think best practices, the only other thing that I would call out would be API strategy, right? I mean, it's been long considered a best practice in the development space for a lot of the same reasons that we see in the Martech space. Seamless integration, security, and governance enhancements, scalability, those kinds of things.
Yeah, the report we did earlier this year, it was really nice to see that so many of the Martech and marketing ops leaders, have really elevated the evaluation of a product's APIs, as one of their
Right.
key criteria.
Yeah, absolutely.
I also love the domain-driven design worldview. I hadn't really thought about it that way before, but this whole cohort of marketing technologists, people who sort of have like one foot in the tech world and one
Right.
foot in the marketing world. That really feels like, okay, the power they get to bring is that sort of domain expertise of marketing,
Right.
being applied to the technical solutions.
Right. Yeah, and it's shocking to me. I mean, this is a topic outside of anything when you think about the human side of software, right? Humans use software, and it's shocking how much people don't think about the end user. I mean, we talk about the end user, but really understanding, if you take a domain-driven design, you really are taking them into consideration, and you're understanding. And again, it's really on the dev side, on the technology side, it's really easy to get caught up in cool technology. And I think we have that everywhere, right? It's that shiny object syndrome. But if you really are thinking about your audience and you're thinking about what you're trying to accomplish, you're going to do great things with that technology.
Yeah, it's one of the things actually Franz and I presented earlier today is that sort of 2x2 of like, okay, implementing technology, is it making things more efficient for the company, on one axis, and the other, is it making things more efficient for the customer on the other?
Right.
And it's a variation of the same thing. Is it's just very easy in this technology to get carried away with some of the automation, some of the possibilities that do increase our own internal efficiency.
Right.
But making sure the human experience on the other side of that is also getting better, or at least not getting worse.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, this could go on to a whole other angle of, the idea that our reliance as a society on technology, it increased exponentially during COVID, and we've not looked back, right? And so being able to really think about the human side of software and having a human-centric approach to all of it is, it kind of takes this very fancy technology and says, whoa, wait a minute, there's, let's have some critical thinking. Let's have humans on the other side that we're thinking about. So yeah.
And tapping into that, if you take it from the human angle, not only UX but also CX, and every
Absolutely.
reverse engineer, I think it becomes so much simpler to become composable.
100%. Absolutely. Yeah, without question. Knowing what you're doing and why you're doing it is so important. And I think it's easy for people to forget that, right?
Well said. Well, speaking of the human dimension of this, we were together at an in-person conference a few months back, Juan Mendoza's Martech World Forum out of the Bay Area, and you kindly participated, and we had this fairly lively debate about, okay, the age-old build versus buy argument in marketing and technology. And one of the aspects of this was, okay, well, given the increasing support for composability in the Martech space, has this changed the calculus for when we should build, when we should buy, or maybe more accurately, what we should build versus what we should buy?
Yeah, absolutely. The debate was a lot of fun. I think the fun part was even leading up to it, we all agreed going into a debate, which is a really hard way to start a debate. So I thought we did a good job of making it spicy, sticking to two sides. But the answer that we all came up with was, it depends. And I know some people say that's a cop-out, but it really isn't. And when you think about composability, there was a time when the only way to get the solution you needed was to build, right? But we know that takes time. We know that takes money, takes resources on the front end to build it. It takes resources on the back end to maintain it. And there are a lot of long-term opportunity costs. If you look at even the Martech map that you guys are producing every year, what has changed is not just composability, but the amount of software that's available has grown exponentially, right? So there isn't necessarily a need to build from scratch, but you're going to shift and say, with a composability approach, we can take the best parts and pieces and build out from there, right? So we don't take a monolithic approach because we want something that's unique to our needs, right? And unique to our customer needs. So the same can hold true from a buy versus build debate. It still is going to depend on what you need for your business. And there is a very good chance if you take a composable approach to it, then you are going to only build when you absolutely have to and buy when it makes the most sense.
Do you think that the lines or the boundaries between building and buying are blurring more and more?
Yeah, I think they're blurring or maybe shifting, right? I think development teams, if they're not spending cycles building, or more importantly, maintaining a component of your stack, then they're freed up to do other things. They can either build new innovations within your stack for you. They're creating maybe new product innovations or internal system improvements. So I think that there's always a need for build, but where that shift in priority, I think, has changed, right? So when I say there's always a need for build, maybe that's coming from my developer roots, right? Saying we can always build things. But when it comes to your Martech stack, it's really understanding what needs to be purchased or what needs to be built, and then prioritizing those the build time for those projects, as opposed to saying everything should be.
Well, I have to say, we have made it an impressively long time through this discussion without bringing up like the topic, of course, of AI. And a lot of what we're covering here today is not the hype of AI, but really starting to understand, like, fundamental the reality of where things are starting to benefit marketers, where they need to be thinking about, the opportunities ahead here for 2025. So one of the questions I'm dying to ask you about is, given your perspective on composability, how do you see like composability applying in the use of new generative AI tools such as, these magical LLMs?
Yeah. Well, I mean, would it be too much to suggest that any stack that has data of any kind also has a composable AI platform, right? So introducing not just how composability applies in your stack with AI, but actually creating a composability AI platform. And what I mean by that is you would create a platform that has model flexibility, right? You don't want to be tied down to one specific model, because vectorizing all of your content can get very expensive. So you would want a platform that's has easy access to the knowledge model, that has multimodal query engines that allow you to look at all kinds of data, right? You'll want a platform that will allow you to ingest data as is and then also harmonize that data. Ultimately, a data platform is able to scale, govern, and grow with your AI data needs. One of my colleagues, we were talking about this just last week, and he suggested we take a Renaissance approach to AI. And he went as far as to call it a building. He said we should be building a polymath architecture, right? So I love that description. I don't know, for those of you who don't know what polymath is, polymath was a great thinker of the Renaissance, right? Someone who excelled in several fields. Maybe we should start calling those who manage our composable Martech stacks polymaths, right?
Love it.
But if you consider a polymath architecture, a composed architecture that leverages multiple LLMs and composes them into one platform, we can think about creating specialized and specific LLMs that let you get really granular with the data and the information that you have access to. Maybe an easier way to think about it is thinking about it as kind of a choose your own adventure game within your AI platform, right? So with each action taken or each input given triggers a response that could trigger another action or response. So you have this web of LLMs within that AI platform that, when added to your composable CDP, for example, or used in combination with the data within your Martech stack, could provide some really, really powerful insights, outputs, and actionable information.
I love the vision of that architecture. Maybe going to the other side of like, okay, so that's maybe the architecture side of it. Like,
Right.
I know a lot of marketers, have questions of like, okay, they're being asked to consider all sorts of use cases
Sure.
for this technology. Some perhaps more realistic than others. Where do you see LLMs today, especially with more controlled RAG, the retrieval augmented generation, offering practical use cases for marketers? And maybe on the other hand, like, are there certain scenarios that you're still skeptical about?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think RAG basically allows you to pull data from a number of different sources, right? External. It allows the AI to essentially look up information it doesn't already know, and this often allows you to return more current and reliable information. So if you have a RAG use case that comes to mind is around data privacy and governance, right? Not only can the AI platform that has RAG implemented apply governance rules on both ends of the LLM, it can also verify that the data being processed has the most current standards in mind, right? So this allows you to apply security and governance to the data, or even advanced redaction features. Data privacy regulations, they're only going to get more strict, as they should, as AI becomes more prevalent, right? So building or using an AI platform that has that RAG implementation allows you to support compliance efforts almost in real time if it's implemented correctly. So to me, that's one area where I think it's super powerful, and it could really save Martech people a lot of time and headache. But I think, if you ask what I'm skeptical about, I think AI output is only as good as the data that's being fed to it. I mean, we find ourselves in our AI era, but not everybody's ready for it, right? I mean, they're excited about it, but that doesn't mean they're ready. If your data isn't clean, you're going to have a problem. I mentioned critical thinking before. I mean, AI is a powerful tool, but we are the advanced species, right? We can't afford to forfeit that critical thinking. We need to keep humans in the loop. We need to trust and verify. We need to be hyper vigilant about the data that we're feeding it. We need to be able to look at any output, especially where we are right now with the technology, and say, before I take action on this, I need to understand, is this accurate, right? Because I think that there are the democratization of generative AI has just accelerated things from an AI perspective. AI is not new, right? It's been around for 75 years, and you can even say that there are advances in AI have happened, or in our technology have happened as a result of AI, from accessibility features like voice recognition. That's where we all got our Siri or Alexa or whatever. So none of that is new, but how we're using it is, and we just have to be smart about it. I think I mentioned to you, Scott, at one point, the movie Idiocracy, but I fear if we are not careful about how we use AI tools, we are going to go the way of that movie. So
all right, let's not do that.
Right?
And that's the impact inside the company. So do you think, or how do you think that AI will, impact the relationship between marketing and IT? Are there some things that you believe marketing and marketing ops should be able to do themselves, as opposed to maybe leaving it to specialists?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it definitely doesn't hurt the relationship. I think it probably helps in a sense, because with a composable AI platform, if we go that far, or even just with AI tools, you can build governance and guardrails that will allow less technical people to become citizen developers. And by that I mean, and you guys have both talked about this in reports and in articles, but there's a lot of information out there that could be actioned on, but there are only so many hours in the day. There's only so much time. And when those tasks could only be accessed by subject matter experts, right, by the technologists, they become deprioritized fairly quickly. If we can get accurately the data into people's hands in a way that they can easily self-serve that information and that data, then it becomes a great relationship, right? And IT and marketing want to live in harmony, but they don't want to have to rely on each other 100%. So if we can, if you can have data analysis without revealing PII, or that kind of thing, that an IT team can serve up to their marketing folks, I think we're going to see a lot of advances in how we are reaching our audiences, how we're customer, the customer experience also is going to improve on the back end. So yeah, I think it can only help the relationship, in my opinion.
It's like a loosely coupled architecture for the organization between
Right,
IT
yeah.
and marketing.
Exactly.
Awesome. This has been so fantastic, Sarah. I guess maybe one closing question, and pretty open-ended, but stepping back, got a lot of folks getting ready to start the next year. Any closing advice you'd give to marketers, marketing ops teams as they prepare for 2025?
Yeah. I mean, I think I'll go back to the whole is greater than the sum of the parts, right? Composability should continue to be a key consideration in your marketing infrastructure, from your stack to your platforms and products to your creations, everything in between, like composable CDPs, composable DXPs. I'll even challenge you with the composable AI platforms. All of those things should be top of mind. Composability equals greater flexibility and affords faster time to market and faster time to promising business outcomes. And with that, I would say, don't be afraid to experiment, and don't be afraid to change if things aren't working. This is something that it's not just for 2025. I think it's just something to live by, right? I mean, I think that, but if you've built your Martech stack with a composable architecture, and you're using composable parts and pieces, that makes that change a lot easier, right? It's a lot less scary than if you have to actually take an application down of some, so you can modernize. And then finally, I think I'd say focus on what's best for your business and your needs. Again, that doesn't sound like something for 2025, but it all goes back to composability, right? Because the beauty of a composable stack is that you can follow that domain-driven design and develop what's best for your organization.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sarah. We will see you in 2025.
Thank you.
Thank you.